So when I first started running, it was probably around 2006 or 2007, and I had just gone to watch the London Marathon, and I was just blown away by the experience. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, there are people of all shapes and sizes running, different colors, different sexes, and everyone's getting like the same love. Like, everyone is being celebrated. That really changed my life. So signed up for the London Marathon, started training, ran a half marathon, which went terribly. But what I found is the more I ran, the more it was like this stuff just coming through my head and heart. But what I found was that it doesn't actually matter how fast you go or how far you go. It's more about embracing the process. The true beauty for me lies.
Talk to me a little bit about rhythm and grit. Like, I want to go right into rhythm and grit because I love the vibe. I love the thought process. In my studying of your platform, there's a lot of vibing. There's a lot of just getting out and doing something. And that's what I
Mhm.
love. Talk to me a little bit about rhythm and grit.
So I came up with the title called "All You Need Is Rhythm and Grit" is because I honestly do believe that that is all you need to be a good runner and also like good at life. Because it when it comes down to the rhythm of the running, that's kind of what you need to find the pocket in running. So like your breathing needs to be in rhythm, your footsteps need to be in rhythm, your arm drive, basically your entire body needs to be in sync for you to find that sort of beautiful flowing movement. And the grit part is that comes in when things get hard and your body or your mind tells you to stop. You need that little bit of grit sprinkled over that rhythm to keep you going. And as far as I'm concerned, if you can keep going on a run when you want to stop, you can keep going at life.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because life is this rhythm, right?
Hmm.
We we have no control. We think we can control all these things, but we have no control. And it's sort of like being on a long run. You know, you don't know what the weather's going
Hmm.
to be. Things can pop up. You're running on different terrain. There's cars, bikes, all kinds of stuff happening. And you have to mentally go somewhere where you're separating to some extent and you're finding that rhythm. Is
Hmm.
that what you teach and what you try to get people to go with so that they might be able to find that vibe as they're getting into the exercise and get past the moment of breakage.
So that is exactly what I try and teach people about running. I try and explain to them that it doesn't actually matter how fast you go or how far you go. It's more about embracing the process. It's not about, okay, I'm going for this incredibly fast time or I'm going for this specific race. Of course, all of those things are amazing, but the true beauty for me lies when you just release yourself from all of those things and just use running as, see, it's weird for me to say an escape because running isn't actually an escape for me. It's this grounding thing that brings me back to all of the things in life. And that's what I try and explain to people, that there's more to running than just putting one foot in front of the other. There's like more to running than medals. There's more to running than just cardio. Like, it's far more mental and sort of spiritual.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for life in general. Like we talk
Hmm.
about life on this show all the time. What's interesting is the more we focus on the result,
Hmm.
the less we enjoy the ride. The more we
Yes.
focus on the process, right? I mean, it's so true. It's the more we focus on the result, it's empty. If I say, "Oh, I want to I need to accomplish this goal." And then you hit that goal and you're like,
Hmm.
"Okay,
What's
I
next?
did it. Now what's next?" If I know I can do that, I want to do something else. But when I enjoy the process,
Hmm.
when I actually go into the day in and day out and enjoy all aspects of it, and you find that joy inside of that,
Hmm.
it tends to be a much better run. And I've never been a runner. I played soccer my whole life, even as an adult. I love the Sunday adult leagues and all that
Oh,
stuff. And
amazing.
yeah, I don't know if you have a team, having been from London. Is there a squad that you root for?
Yeah, so I used to watch a lot of football and then I kind of fell out of love with football. purely because I noticed that I was spending a lot of time and a lot of energy, and I was getting very agitated 2 or 3 times a weekend, and my heart rate would fly up. And then one day I just kind of said to myself, I need to stop doing this. And literally, I stopped watching football then and sort of spent my time doing other things. As it was not literally my whole life, but I would travel all over the place to go and follow Man United. And yeah, I was just like, I'm spending so much money and time. I could be doing other things. Let me stop. And
Yeah.
I literally stopped. But I still love watching football if it is on the television. I just can't chase it like I used to. And my
Yeah.
team used to be Man United.
Well, they are they're a
Not
great
doing
team.
well.
No, they're a great team to love, but they haven't found their rhythm.
No.
They're too focused on the result and they're not finding that rhythm. And that's a perfect
No.
example of a team that's too individualistic and not trying to find the pieces that all play together in the right way. And you bring up a great point. I love the sport. My point to running is that I've always been a sprinter.
Hmm.
So depending upon your position,
Hmm.
if you're a midfielder, you jog a lot.
Hmm.
You sprint when you need to, but there's a lot of movement and it's
Hmm.
kind of a rhythm in a softer run. It's an endurance game.
Hmm.
When you play in the front, where I've
Hmm.
always played in that
A
attacking
forward.
position, I'm a striker, a forward. I've got to sprint and I
Hmm.
and I've got to recover and I've got to
Hmm.
sprint and I've got to recover. And you make a lot of runs that are
Hmm.
useless, meaning that
Yes.
they're useless to you, but they're useful to the team.
Hmm.
You're drawing a defender away, you're
Hmm.
creating, and the more you fall in love with the process of
Hmm.
making those runs, you're creating a better opportunity for the
Hmm.
team.
Hmm.
And so I've often found, I like to run, but I like to run when I'm on the field. I could run 3 to 5 miles on a field, but if I go to run 3 to 5 miles, I've always struggled with that. And because I love it in the other way. So it's really
Hmm.
interesting to me when I start, I think sometimes it's about finding the way that you love to run. And I've
Yep.
always loved to run. I just love to run on a field.
Yep. And I talk to people about this all the time because I'll say to them, "Oh, I like, do you want to come for a run?" Or they will say something similar to what you've said. And I'll say to them, it's not the same, but it is the same. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like I run all day, whether it's playing basketball or football, and I'll say to them, well, how much do you think you run? And they were like, somewhere between 3 and 5 miles, or they'll say somewhere between like 5 and 6 miles. And I was like, well, then you can do that running. And they were like, no, that is in one go. Like I can only do that if I go really, really fast, lots and lots of times. And I literally just say something which some people might think is crazy, but it's not. I just simply say, well, have you ever tried slowing down? And I literally just say it just like that. Sort of turn my head. I was like, have you ever tried slowing down? And you're like, well, no, I don't think my body works like that. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't think your body works like that? And it's about finding like a different way to do things. And I always say to them, I was like, this type of running might not be for you, but don't shut the running down because you think that you might not be able to do it. You haven't tried it yet. So you sort of immediately saying, I'm going to fail at this before trying at this. I then sort of probe a little bit deeper at that. I'm like, well, why do you think you're going to fail? I just will. I said, but why? Why do you think you'll fail? Well, no reason. I said, then come for a run with me. And like when you dig into people's reasoning, a lot of the time it's like their own belief in themselves. And when you sort of put your arm around them and say like I believe in you, or this person believes in you, or that person believes in you, that also really really helps to get people out the door. And that's sort of one of the many advantages of having a community in this running space that supports you and you support them.
Yeah, it's interesting. The older you get, you realize that so much of the hesitation or the mindset around not liking something comes from experiences that you had when you were probably young, and this definition that you've created to define yourself in this box. But
Hmm.
when you break free from that and you realize how you can press past the boundary or past the goal, you see that there's so much more to enjoy in
Hmm.
that run or that new experience or whatever it may be. And I have no problem getting uncomfortable. I have no problem going for a run.
Hmm.
But I definitely enjoy it more on the field,
Hmm.
because I haven't found the rhythm
Hmm.
outside yet. It's been something that I've been, you also have, the older you get, the more your body breaks down a little bit more, and
Hmm.
you play soccer into your 40s, and the you go for a run and you ache
Yeah.
severely for the next couple of days. Um, but it is I think it's so much. I love the rhythm and grit, and that's why I started there, because I believe so much of of life, to your point, is that rhythm, and
Hmm.
finding the rhythm that allows you to enjoy it.
Hmm.
And if you're enjoying it and you have that vibe, then everything around, that energy you put out into the world, is going to be the energy you receive.
Yep.
And
And
that's what you're talking about, believing in people.
hmm like that really, really changed my life. Like everything that you just said resonated with me, but the final part about the energy that you put out into the universe just changes. And that is what running gave me. Like running just opened me up to the rest of the world and made me realize that I was dealing with whatever I was dealing with, and the world didn't necessarily know that. So the moment I sort of opened up about my journey, people were far more welcoming, people were far nicer. And it wasn't because they weren't nice before, it was I was getting back what I was putting out there. And because I'd now put this new sort of vulnerable energy out there, this open, this loving, like all of these people and friendships and opportunities and all of these things, like they were drawn to me, as opposed to me going out there and I guess chasing them or hunting them or trying to find them. And that's also what I try and explain to people that I either come across, meet, work with. They say to me, like, on this journey of yours, like, how did you plan it, or how did you get to wherever it is that you are now? And I'll say to them, I have no idea. I still have no idea how I got here. And it wasn't like a big decision. It was a bunch of really, really small decisions and life changes and consistency and persistence, which sort of brought me here. And if I was thinking about where the end goal was or the end result, I wouldn't have got here, because I would have been far more interested in, right, I need to get there. I need to get there. But I'm here because I had no idea what I was doing. And the more vulnerable I became, the more doors opened for me.
Talk to me about that journey. Give me a little insight into the journey of of your accomplishing this goal of creating that vulnerability. Where did you start, and what made you start? So, were you always fit? Were you always into physical fitness? Did you struggle
No.
with that and kind of make the run? Like, talk to our listeners about that journey.
So when I first started running, it was probably around 2006 or 2007, and I had just gone to watch the London Marathon. Now, I'd lived in London my entire life. I went, but I'd seen it on television, but I'd never been to go and see it in person. Maybe because I didn't know anyone like personally well enough to go and watch them. So when a colleague of ours, Samantha Bell, she came in, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to run the marathon." So I went and watched it, and I was just blown away by the experience. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like there are people of all shapes and sizes running, different colors, different sexes, like different genders, like it. And I was like, "Wow!" Like there's someone dressed as a rhino, there's someone carrying a fridge, and everyone's getting like the same love, like everyone is being celebrated for running. And I was like, oh. And I literally turned to some friends and I was like, oh, I'd love to do this next year. And they just laughed. And even if I wasn't serious when I said it, I was serious after the laugh. And I was like, okay, cool. You lot think I can't do it? They're like, yeah, you're a little bit overweight. You eat a lot. You drink a lot. Maybe leave that. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And literally that day, I not changed everything, but that was one of the first steps to changing. So signed up for the London Marathon, started training, ran a half marathon, which went terribly. But what I found is the more I ran, the more it was like this stuff just coming through my head and heart. And at first, I kind of tried to shut it down because I didn't particularly enjoy crying on runs. Um, but what I found was that I actually hadn't mourned for my grandmother that had passed away, and I hadn't mourned for a bunch of other things. And all of that just came out in the run. Like in the beginning, it was like, just go away, leave me alone. And the tears would come, and I'd try and shut it down. And then at one point, I just realized, okay, this is pointless trying to find this. Let me just let this come. And then there were just runs that I would go on where it was kind of like this grounding free counseling that I was getting, like free therapy. Of course, if you need therapy, go and see a therapist. However, in my mind, it was like I was just dealing with stuff. And the more and more I ran, the more open I became, the nicer I became. And then there was a point where I sort of realized I really wasn't happy with my life. um, so I won't go deep into how I changed my job. Um, but I moved from working in local government to working in the community with football teams, athletics teams, trampolining teams, all sorts of teams. And then my boss actually said to me, "You've started this running journey. You've already got your soccer qualifications, football, table tennis, trampolining, all of these like teaching qualifications. Do you want to be a running coach?" And I was like, "Sure." And then he paid for me to do my running qualifications. And then he said, "Do you want to set up a running club?" And I went, "Sure." So then I set up a running club. And then he introduced me to another guy called Charlie Dark, who still runs something called Run Them Crew. I met him, and I noticed that even though he was a black guy, even though he went to private school like me, he was just very, very different. And I just sort of got introduced to this new world of people that I didn't know existed. And it just opened my mind to so many other things. Like because I'd worked for local government, or I'd worked in banks, or I'd worked here, I had no involvement with the sort of creative side of things. And I was like, hold on, you get paid as a photographer. And I was like, you get paid as a videographer. You can pay your mortgage as a DJ. So I met all of these people, and it just opened my world. And I was like, I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm like, these lot looks so much more happy than me. They've got more money than I have. They have more opportunities than I have. And I was like, yes, I love this life that I have. I said, but I know I can do more. And I just started to transition out of what I was doing. um, I spoke to a friend of mine. I was like, I'm not really happy with what I'm doing. And she said to me, like really casually, really, really blasé, she was like, why don't you make a list? I was like, a list? She was like, yeah, why don't you make a list of like the things that you're good at, and then make a list of the things that relate to what you're good at, and then like see if there's a job out there for you. And I remember literally just giggling. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you meant to write a list, and then what, this list's going to come true. And literally, I wrote the list, and here we are.
You know, I wrote down a couple of words as you were talking that really resonated. And number one is getting in touch with your true self.
Hmm.
So, you know, I think a lot of times we go through life and we are an actor in our own
Yeah.
life.
Hmm.
You know, we're who someone else wants us to be.
Hmm.
We're what we thought we wanted to be when we were young. We're,
Hmm.
you know, attaining popularity or success or whatever it is you're chasing.
Hmm.
Maybe it's financial goals, but you mentioned chasing a couple of times, and
Hmm.
anytime we chase anything, you don't catch it.
Hmm.
So the interesting dynamic is identifying our true self, whether it's writing things down in a list, identifying what we're great at, what we're not great at,
Hmm.
and diving into that is so powerful. I also wrote down the power of saying yes.
Yes.
So like it's really simple, right? You started out by saying, "Yes, I'll do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Yes, I want to get my runners coaching. Yes, I'm interested in trying this. I'm open to these new people."
Hmm.
And I think that so many times people shut down. We all shut down to opportunities.
Hmm.
And if I know personally, if I have a challenge, it's I say yes probably too much.
Hmm.
So and then you get run down and you get
Yep.
torn down and you're tired and you're like, okay, all right, I got to say no a couple more times so I can breathe again. And
Yep.
but the power of saying yes. And then the last thing is, I love that when we find creativity,
Hmm.
I remember being a kid and going outside and being bored, and my dad would
Hmm.
say, you're not creative. Go be creative. And I had this mentality that I wasn't creative. Like
Ah, no.
and it's so funny to me because it's the opposite of who I was.
Hmm.
I create businesses. I
Hmm.
create marketing and branding opportunities. We do.
Hmm.
I am so creative, and I love that. And so when you find that thing that you're creative in, when you find that
Yeah.
passion of creativity, it's like this well of I don't
Hmm.
even need to be paid when I'm being creative. If I'm in a creative space, I don't even need to make money for it. I
Hmm.
love it. And so
Hmm.
this podcast is a perfect example. This is a creative space. This
Hmm.
is conversational space where we learn about each other, learn things that we could share with the world and help people live a better life.
Hmm.
It's creative. And the funny thing was, it's something so simple, but when you find it,
Hmm.
it's like this gold that lives in you. And so I just, as you talk, those were the things that came to me. And I'm going to pause because I know you have a lot to add to that. There's no question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the like when I found my space for creativity, like when I found that, let me hold on, let me rephrase that. When I gave myself permission to be who I am and create the things that I wanted to create, like the things that I accomplished personally, and then the things that I accomplished with my team and my community are things that I could never ever have imagined. But all of that stuff, it didn't happen overnight. It started off like really, really small, and I can actually remember the first event that I put on. It was an event called Mission Impossible, and the reason why I was able to put on events was because I'd learned a bunch of skills from the previous job that I had, where we would put on football tournaments or table tennis tournaments for young people in youth centers or schools. So you kind of you do those things, but you don't realize how valuable those skills are. You're just like, oh, I'm just putting on a competition for kids. And then when I put on this running event, the whole reason I put it on was because I believed there was something missing from our running space, from our running community, and that was joy. Like that was fun. That was, this isn't important. That was, just come and do this and be with friends. So we set up this event called Mission Impossible, and it was simply, you have 3 hours to get to as many locations as you possibly can with a team of three or four, and take pictures of it. You can do it with your family, you can do it for your friends. And then I sort of got a bunch of, this was the first event, and then I got a bunch of friends to like volunteer. Then I had medals made, I had a trophy made. Like I reached out to what I didn't even know were sponsors back then, and I was just like, oh, like, have you got some chocolate that I can give like my runners, or have you got some drinks that you can give my runners? And that was my first event. And I remember we had over 100 people, and I was like, all of these people are here for me, for us, and they're gonna go out and they're gonna have all this fun. And then I remember that afternoon as well. I stood on stage. It was in like a underground basement of a bar with a mic, and I was crying. And I was like, "Oh, all of you have come out. You've come to see me. You've come to see the community. Thank you so much. You've had so much fun." And after I did that, I was like, "Wow, who knew I could do that with my friends and my team? Let's do more." And we just built on that. And every single event, it wasn't bigger, it was just different. And it wasn't better, it was once again just different. And then as time passed, people saw what we could do, and different brands would hire us to put on events. And then we partnered with Nike, and they helped us create some amazing events, like where we took over Wembley Stadium. Like, you're a soccer fan, like we took over Wembley Stadium, and we had hundreds of young people um running through the underground car parks. We took over like go kart tracks. We took over Westfield Shopping Center, like just through running. And that's just because I'm like, we need to do something different because running isn't fun. And a way to make it fun is to do stuff that either hasn't been done before or sprinkle your own like special sauce or twist on it. And that's what we did. We just engaged a completely different audience with the help of our global community. Um, yeah, and that was a
Yeah,
very
you made
long
running creative.
answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, it was a great answer because you made running creative, and ultimately, I keep going back to movement.
Hmm.
Like when each decision we make in life is about that movement forward, and we're not. Sometimes we try so hard to control the result again that we're forgetting that it starts with the movement. You got to take a
Hmm.
step forward. So
Yep.
you chose to run that first day, and your friend is like, "Dude, you're not you're not going to do this."
Yeah.
And
That's
and
exactly what they did.
yeah, they're like, "Dude, you're not going to do this. You're lying to yourself."
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they're a bad friend cuz sometimes they know you, but they
Hmm.
know the version of you that you've chosen to be to that point. They don't know the new version that you're choosing to be in that moment.
Hmm.
And so you chose to change. Then you
Yep.
chose to make a movement.
Hmm.
You went from movement to a movement, and that's really interesting, and I love the creative ideas. I mean, it's funny. Um I was in Italy a couple weeks ago, and my buddy and I are walking in Como, and we
Hmm.
were going to church in the
Hmm.
morning on a Sunday. We don't
Hmm.
speak Italian, but we were going to go to a Sunday mass.
Hmm.
And we're walking through the town, and we're stopping like every 5 seconds. Oh my God, look at this plant.
Hmm.
Look at this church. Look at this view. And I looked at my buddy who's been my best friend since high school, 13 years old, and I said, "Isn't it funny how you can go through the same path every day?" And we're walking past lots of people, and
Hmm.
they're looking down. They don't see the tree, they don't see the beauty that's next to us. They don't stop and look. How many times could someone from Italy come to our place,
Hmm.
walk around and see things we miss every single day?
Hmm.
And it was a simple mile walk to church,
Hmm.
but in that mile it was so powerful to just recognize the things that we miss every day and
Hmm.
remind ourselves that there's beauty in the walk, in the
Yep.
run, in
Yep.
whatever it is, and sometimes you just have to change your environment to see it.
Hmm. And that's, I talk about that in regards to running a lot because I noticed that if I go for a run or if I go for a walk in comparison to if I go for a bike ride or if I go for a drive, my head is up, I'm looking forward, and I notice far more things. And what I notice about these things is they change wherever you go, but they have a similar impact on you. I guess the difference is what you then do with that feeling. Now, running has taken me all over the world, and I've like traveled to places that there is no way in the world that I would have traveled to if I wasn't running. Like, I was sat down in a Thai restaurant, which is right by our track, and I was with two friends. One guy from Hong Kong that I'd met through running, another guy from Amsterdam who I had met through running. And he just said, real easy breezy, he was like, next week I'm doing Hood to Coast in Taiwan. Like, you lot should come. Not next week, in a couple of weeks. You lot should come. And me and my friend Edson, we sort of put our forks down, and he was like, what are the dates? And it's just being open to stuff like that. So anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, couple of months, and we're all in Taiwan, and we're doing this race from one end of Taiwan to another end, and that's all I keep doing. Like, I just keep popping my head up. I'm like, oh my, look at that! That is a Godzilla made out of spray cans. Everyone's just walking past this. Is it because they see it every day? I'm just going to stand and I'm going to look at this because this is amazing. How can someone make a Godzilla out of spray cans? Like, I then walked down the street a little bit further, and because of how tentatively I was looking, and I'll send you the photo. I've still got it. I just saw this. I think it was a centipede or some kind of silkworm, like just hanging from another one of the Godzillas. And had I not been paying attention, I would have walked past and I would have missed that beautiful part of the day. And that's what I say to people, like whether you're running, whether you're walking, just lift your head up and just look at stuff, because that changed, like just seeing that changed my entire day, changed my entire trip. And what you find on runs and walks is you end up going down these little alleys or these little nooks or these little roads, and you find stuff, and that stuff inspires you. Like I remember I say to people, one day just turn left instead of right and see what happens. And I turned left instead of right, and it inspired like a whole series of races for me, because I was like, ah, this road would be perfect for like a drag race for people. Like it's set up perfectly. There's no traffic. There's some slight undulations. There's a great point for cheering. There are trees on the side. So if when we take pictures, and that's just from literally turning left. And that's what I say to people: turn left instead of right, and open your eyes.
What it brings us back full circle to is your question that you ask somebody every time they are challenged with whether or not they can run on a soccer field or anywhere else. You ask them, "Have you ever thought about slowing down?"
Hmm.
And what we're doing, that's how you bring it full circle in a
Yep.
conversation, folks. If you've ever, if most of us rush through life and we
Hmm.
see nothing, especially in our everyday,
Hmm.
we see nothing, and or we see only what we want to see, and it's
Hmm.
very small tidbits. But I was thinking, I was like, you know what, Corey's next book needs to be Slow Down and Run. That's good, that's good.
I
I
mean, it
mean,
is. It
it's
is. I
good
like that.
because you could talk, because the things that are interesting in life happen when we slow down and we open
Hmm.
ourselves up to a new conversation with a friend. And
Hmm.
nowadays, with our phones and everything, I talk about the habit of daily impact all the time. And
Hmm.
for me, it's an act of kindness that builds on itself. And
Hmm.
so if I hold the door for somebody, or I smile at someone, or I compliment the teenage girl at the counter at the grocery store, or the lady that's I opened the door for the other day. I helped some. I was at the airport, and this lady had so many bags, and her daughter had a baby, and they were there. The other daughter was in a Jeep, and they're blocking traffic. And I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna put my stuff down. Let me go help these ladies put
Hmm.
the suitcases in." Small little things
Hmm.
that help someone in a moment are daily acts of kindness. It's a habit of daily impact, but
Hmm.
it builds on it. And in a world where we're so fast and so focused at looking down,
Hmm.
we're not focused on seeing what's in front of us, and
Hmm.
slowing down allows us to do it.
Yep.
And that's what I love about that, and your openness to say yes. I mean,
Yeah.
being in Taiwan in a couple weeks is kind of cool. Like,
That was, see, it sounds weird, but I'm always like, it was, I'm very, very privileged now to be in a position to be able to do things like that. And I'm always aware of when I have conversations like this, I'm really blasé about, yeah, 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 like just in a few weeks we were in Taiwan, or yeah, 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 just in a few weeks we were in Shanghai. And people think that that stuff came overnight. Like I just sort of swiped my card and was like, "Oh, we're off." There was way more, way more going on than that. But in the beginning, it started off with a much smaller yes, and that smaller yes was to simply leave one part of London to go and explore another part of London. But those opportunities just kept coming, and that's how I got into photography. That's how I got into writing. That's how I got into podcasting. Like all of these things, like literally happened by accident, because I was like, yeah, why not? But what happens is because you then put yourself in positions where you're willing to say yes, more people then come to you, because like, oh, you're the guy that says yes. Or something that I always get, which you're the guy that's always smiling. Like no one ever says, ah, you're that guy who did this, and this. It's like, you're the happy guy. You're the guy that smiles, or you're the friend of this person, or this person told me about you, or that person introduced me. And that's what I find about the world that we live in nowadays. Because you are just completely open, because you are just nice, and you're being nice not because you want something in return, but because it's the right human thing to do, people are far more willing to sort of come to you with a problem or with a task or with an opportunity, because they know that you're going to enhance whatever it is that you're involved in, and enhancing it is just sprinkling more of you on it. And that's what I say to a lot of people. It's like, sometimes people just want a little bit of you, or sometimes people just want a little bit of the energy that you bring, and it doesn't matter what that thing is that you're doing. Like, people will follow you because of your good heart and your good energy. Could be a book, it could be a podcast, like you could become a chef, like you could open a restaurant. People are coming to see you, and it just so happens that you're serving food.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned how blessed you are. And what's funny is one of my largest challenges with social media is
Mhm.
that I live such a great life and do so I
You
I,
can't
I
say that,
do.
Scott.
No, I do. I live an amazing life. I have an amazing family.
Hmm.
I do unbelievable things, almost to the point where I feel like sharing too much of it
Oh yeah,
is
100%.
all it takes away the humility that I
Hmm.
have. It goes against what I and it's a struggle because I also know if I'm going to truly identify with authenticity and vulnerability, it's
Hmm.
putting it all out there. It's not
Hmm.
only picking the things that you want. And when you say, you know, I feel so privileged and blessed, and these things are happening, and you're able to say yes to a lot of things, but you've earned that.
Yes.
And that's the part that so many of us have to remember is that
Hmm.
it was earned through movement, it
Hmm.
was earned through work, it
Hmm.
was earned through the openness to say yes in times that most people say no,
Hmm.
and having the vision to be able to look past what might be a challenge.
Yep.
And but just truthfully, I think I was at Inter Milan versus AC Milan
No
in
way.
Italy just a couple weeks ago when
Hmm.
Inter won the championship in Italy. I mean, it was
Amazing.
unreal. I mean, I get chills thinking about it. I don't even think I posted one picture from that yet.
Hmm.
And it's ridiculous, but life moves so fast that
Hmm.
sometimes I don't even slow down enough to say, "Hey, check this out. This was such an amazing experience." And but I love that you're bringing that to everybody's attention. You're drawing it out and you're reminding people that when we do these habits of kindness, these
Hmm.
openness moments, you're bringing other people with you,
Oh
and that
yeah.
energy is infectious.
No, you have to. Like I said this to Salema the other day when we were doing like my book talk. Like, for me, a bunch of other people came before I did, and they changed the space and made it welcoming for me. And I'm trying to do exactly the same thing. It's not just about me. It's great that I've accomplished the things that I've done, but that it's never been about me. It's always about all of those people who are coming behind me. Now, the reason why I say that is when I first started Trap Mafia with my friends, my best friend Jeggy and my now wife Jules, like the how we described it, or it's not even the mission statement. It wasn't even a mission statement then. It was what we, or what I, or what all of us wanted to do, was change the way that track is viewed by normal everyday people by making it far more accessible for everybody, but especially women, girls, and people of color. Like that was it. How we were going to do it, who knows? How we were going to do it, had no idea. But that's all we set out to do. That's all we set out to do. And we just stumbled across these opportunities and these events and decided to change the way that we did things, but all because we wanted more people in the sport, because we realized that with more young people in the sport and with more people of color in the sport that we're doing, like, it evolves, it changes, and it kind of becomes not necessarily what it should be. But when we look at athletics, or when we look at anything life, it's supposed to be representative of the world that we live in. And I don't feel that track, where we were in London, in the UK, in the world, it wasn't representative of like our world, and we wanted to change that. And we knew that the only way to change it was working with all of the people that had already been doing it, but also bringing in new energy. Like I'm 46, I'll be 47 this year, I think. Like a 16-year-old, of course they might want to listen to me, but they're far more interested in a message that an 18 or 19-year-old is giving them. So as far as I'm concerned, me and my age, it's my job to pass on all of these other things so that they can be ahead of the curve and continue to create awesome, amazing things. But it's always about having more people in the room, like having more ownership, having more. It's not even control. It's just ownership, like on the understanding of a space that you sit in, that you put a lot of money in. And when I say put a lot of money in, as in like we will buy trainers, we will buy socks, like stuff to run in. So if we're putting all of this money in, shouldn't we have like access to how this thing works?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Charlie Dark, Mike Sace, like all of those people they built, and I've now come with my friends and I've built my little plot, and now it's other people are coming to build plots. It's kind of like that scene in Lord of the Rings when the guy is like, go up there and just light that fire so that everybody else can see that our fire is lit. And then when they see that our fire is lit, they'll be far more likely to light their own fire. But if they keep going up there, I'm like, oh, there's nothing up there. They might keep going back downstairs. But because they've seen what you're doing, they're far more likely to find their why.
Yeah, leadership is influence, John Maxwell says, and what you're doing is leading by example. When you show someone that it can be done, and you do it. I also find it interesting. I'm also 45, so I'm in the same age band, and I find it interesting how many times younger people are actually paying attention to what we're saying.
Yes.
So it's actually surprising. Now, don't get me wrong. My sons may not be listening to what I'm saying. They're
Hmm.
hearing it. They might not be processing it yet, but
Hmm.
their friends often are. Their friends are
Ah.
paying attention,
Hmm.
and their friends are saying things or DMing me or whatever it is.
Ah.
And I think that's super cool because
Hmm.
it means that the influence is it's not just for us
Hmm.
in the space that we're in. It's for the
Hmm.
world. We're putting it
Yeah.
out into the universe to make it a better place.
Hmm.
And I also love that the decision to go for a run got you married.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I heard. I mean,
Yes, that is exactly what happened. Like I met my wife um on a run, and it's not even on a run, it's more than on a run. Basically she emailed my friend, mentor, one of the many reasons I'm here, Charlie Dark, emailed him and says, like I've heard about your running club or crew, Rundem Crew, like I'd love to come and join your crew. And he kind of said, hi Julia, great to meet you, you're more than welcome to come and join our crew, but let me introduce you to Corey, who runs Rundem Crew West, which is our West London branch. It just so happens that you're closer to him, so you can come to any of them. And basically, she came to RDC West, and we ran together. And sort of, we didn't in the beginning. We didn't really like care about each other. Like there were no fireworks. So like, oh, we're in love. It was more we're just at the same club. And then she sort of disappeared for a little bit, and then she came back, and what I noticed was that we just ran more and more often together. It was me, her, and Jeggy. Um, and then we started doing more on Monday nights, which was kind of like our local run. And then we'd go to Charlie's run on a Tuesday night. And then we started running track on Thursdays. So that's already 3 nights a week that we're spending together. And then we would go on long runs on Saturdays, and that's like 4 days. And then we just started doing more, and then we sort of realized we're now texting, we're now on the phone. And then yeah, we just spent more and more time with each other, but she was always faster than me and is still faster than me. So when we were on track, it was like Jeggy running at his pace, Jules running at her pace, and then me running at my pace. And it was just this sort of high intensity, primal sort of chasing game, like just for months or years. And we just fell for each other. And we built Track Mafia together, which is our running crew, like our business. And she is always my biggest cheerleader, like my biggest supporter. Like I can't do stuff without my beautiful Jules. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. But I mean, what's great to listen to for everyone listening is when you're hearing that it starts with a choice to change, to
Hmm.
be better, to do something different, to go left instead of right,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And that change creates movement and you go with it. You continue to go with it. And as
Hmm.
you've gone with it, you've had more and more success, but nothing more successful than finding your partner for life, finding
Yeah.
your you know your partner in the mafia, your the person that's going to build something bigger with you. And I think that's so powerful because a lot of people listen to conversations like this and they're like, yeah, these guys aren't like me. They're not. I'm and it's or they forget that it starts with it got so easy for you. You just
Hmm.
described falling in love with
Hmm.
ease because it starts with friendship. It
Yep.
starts with connectivity. It starts
Hmm.
with doing something hard together.
Hmm.
And it's not hard when you're doing something you're passionate about. Your passion comes through and people are attracted to
Hmm.
that versus you having to go out and tell everybody how great you are, which isn't
Which
going
I
to
would
work.
never do.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. Nobody cares, but they
No.
care when you're infectious and you're attracting people. That's the key.
Hmm. And it's funny what you just said about no one caring. And I say that to people all the time. And I literally say, no one cares. And they're like, what do you mean no one cares? And I was like, no one cares. And I was like, the sooner you can deal with that, the easier life is going to be. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm saying to you, I'm not saying no one cares about you, but when you have an idea or when you have a concept or when you want to share something with someone, I always say to them, first and foremost, why should anyone care about what it is that you're saying or what it is that you're doing? And it's not in a bad way, it's not in a talking down, it's not in a negative way. It's, I want them to think to themselves, this message that they're sharing with people, like, you can't be upset that people aren't as passionate about this thing that you are passionate about. Like, you can't be upset about that. And that's another thing. Like, the moment you realize that, you, like, your day, your life, your world is so much freer because you come to the conclusion or the realization that your job is not to go around convincing people that you know what you're talking about or that you're right or that you know what they should be doing or what they should be doing. That's not your job. Your job is to find your lane. Your job is to find your gift. Your job is to find this thing that you love, that you're passionate about, that you may not necessarily. It's not about not being able to breathe or live without, but you feel different or weird when you're unable to do that. And the moment you find that passion, like, just bottle it up and just put it on the shelf and just wait. And when I say just wait, not put it on the shelf and then disappear off and expect people to come and find it, but you just keep building your magic potion. Like, why should I care about you? And that fries some people sometimes because, like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, it will make sense to you.
Well, and I think you also, everything you just said is so powerful. The second part to that I would add, listening to your story, is you've been surrounded by the right people.
Yep.
So your crew, your people, your
Hmm.
group, your circle. a lot of times we're in the wrong circles.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so no one cares and no one cares, or no one cares until you're doing something with it. And when
Yep.
they see that and they're the right circle, they
Hmm.
invest in you. They
Hmm.
build with you. They come
Hmm.
along for the journey.
Hmm.
And I think you've mentioned your friends, you've mentioned, the people that started things before you that brought you
Hmm.
along. Like there's this circle that
Hmm.
keeps getting bigger and bigger because that energy becomes even more powerful when unified with other people towards a common goal.
Yep.
Teamwork is better than individual all day long.
All day. Like that's exactly what has happened. Like all of us have sort of met in this running space. Like all of these people who the world didn't think could or would run, like we now do run. And because we're not sort of your old school runners, we look at running with a completely different twist and have made it a lot more fun than it was before, a lot more enjoyable. And because this sort of movement was started back in '05 or '06 by Mike Sace and then carried on by Charlie Dark and a bunch of other crews all over the world, the reason why it has taken up the space that it has is because all of these people, all they're doing is sending out an invitation to a party. And it's like, we're having this party over here. You might be having an amazing party over here, but why not come over here and join this party? And what you find is because of how the invitation was sent out initially, it's only a certain type of person that
That's
wants to
drawn.
come to this party. And then you have all of these people with all of this energy and all of this creativity and all of these ideas, but also all of this vulnerability and all of this trauma, like in this space. Like it just like you just sort of bounce into each other, and like atoms you just sort of create stuff. And because there are people there who are who think like you or who think a little bit differently, they're like, yeah, do it. And then what you find is the small idea that you had is now an even bigger idea, and even more people are involved because you've got buy-in from your community. And like that's the beauty of having a community, or having people who really care for you and have watched you grow. They know that you're coming to this thing with like this clean, open heart. So they're like, yeah, of course we'll help you, of course we'll get involved. And when we first started, we had no idea what we were doing. But now, fast forward, whether it's 10 years or 15 years, now all of these people who didn't know what they were doing, they now hold beautiful high positions in all of the running brands that you can think of, in all of the tech brands that you can think of. So not only were we of influence in our small communities, we're now influencing the bigger running ecosystem or the bigger tech ecosystem. And once again, for me, it goes back to not pulling up the ladder. It goes to throwing the ladder down and helping people up. Because the more people we have that look like us and sound like us in those spaces, the more likely those decisions are going to be made actually thinking about our wants and our needs.
So as you put this message of believing, and you're putting a message out there of helping people believe in themselves.
Hmm.
Do you feel like when you went on those first couple runs, your vulnerability and your challenge came from thinking of the people that had believed in you, and you were finding something in that space? Or do you think that were you just finding that rhythm where you were going to share something that's been in you forever? Because this is deeper. This isn't what I
Hmm.
love about your story is it's not just this isn't just about you deciding to do something and then go and doing it. This is a belief in yourself that now is infectious, and it's helping other people. And these other individuals you've mentioned are doing the same thing. And now you've
Yeah.
come together for this great belief. But
Yeah.
I was curious on that, the moments of kind of from I've never to my from my buddy telling me no, it's
Hmm.
not happening, to you deciding and then having those breakthroughs. if it was just finding that belief?
So I'm not sure if the belief was always in me. I think I found that on the road. I think I found that on runs. I think I truly found myself on runs because at the very beginning, my first run, I couldn't run to the bottom of the road. And I talk a lot about in the book. I'm like, my metaphor for I have many metaphors, but one of the metaphors for life is just get to the bottom of the road. Just get to the bottom of the road and see what happens. And that's all I did. I could not run to the bottom of the road. That's like 250 meters without like feeling like I was going to collapse. First time I did it, I was like, wow, I've got to the bottom of the road. But I have another 42 kilometers worth of getting to the bottom of the road. How on earth am I going to do that? And then I switched my mindset and I was like, it doesn't really matter because yesterday I couldn't run to the bottom of the road. I never thought I could do that, but here I am. And then it's like, now that bottom of the road is you got to run around the block. And then after the block, it's you got to run around your neighborhood. And then after that, it's like venturing into a different neighborhood, but always tentatively. Like I always made sure I had like my bus pass or Oyster card at the time because I feared that I still wasn't going to get home. I feared that I wasn't going to make it back. But whilst I was on those runs, all my body kept saying to me was stop, slow down, you're not worthy, you can't make it. Oh dude, like your legs, your back, everywhere hurts, you should stop, why are you out here? And in the beginning I would listen to those voices, and then it wasn't until I realized that I had a choice. I didn't have to listen to those voices, and I could reframe those voices and I could speak to myself in a different way. So it was literally like the angel and the devil on either side. It was like stop running, and I programmed my brain to be like, nah. It wasn't even an aggressive no. It was more of a nah. I want to keep going, and
It's
then
that
slow.
self-talk. It's that self-talk, right?
Yeah, and then slowly but surely, like that changed everything. And how people knew about that was I, one, told everyone, but two, when I discovered or met these people in this creative space, I went back to old school Corey, which is being a little bit creative. I used to love writing. I forgot about that, and I just started writing. So I started blogging. Ah, running's terrible, this is terrible, but I had this breakthrough and I had that breakthrough. And then I was talking to Charlie one day, and he said to me, like, you should write more of this stuff down. So then I started writing poetry. And I remember one day I wrote this really dark poem, like I've still got it. And I sent it to him, and he phoned me straight away and he was like, dude, are you all right? And I said to him, I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? What's up? And he was like, that poem was deep, man. He was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of dealing with like some stuff with my gran and running. And I didn't even realize, but it's come out through writing and poetry. And then he started giving me more writing exercises to do to sort of bring that out of me. And I never would have discovered that if I didn't discovered running, if I didn't meet Charlie, and if I didn't open up to him and be like, I'm feeling really vulnerable right now and I might need some help.
That's great. Well, you're laying out a recipe for success, but not success, financial success, or those are things that come
Hmm.
when you find yourself. And when you find yourself and you're finding yourself in whatever it is that's taking you out of the everyday, it's allowing you to
Hmm.
open your eyes, see more of life, open yourself up to new relationships, open yourself up to deal with trauma and challenges that you've had in the past. All these things are a part of movement and taking
Hmm.
that first step and running to the bottom of the hill.
Yes.
That's
Like,
great. So what's next? So as we wrap up, what's
mhm.
next? What are you building? What do you want to talk about just briefly to tell everybody that they can that they should be following, and then we need to let everyone know how they can follow you, how they can join your movement,
Thank you.
and become something that they know they have in them.
First and foremost, buy the book. All you need is rhythm and grit. Like at the moment, I am touring with my book and doing some talks. I recently did one with my dear friend Salima Maskela at a beautiful small bookstore called Reparations. The next stop is DC. We're going to be doing that around Juneteenth. So please have a look out for that. Where you can find me, I'm on Instagram. My name is BitBeefy. But you can also find me on the Apple Fitness Plus app. I am the Time to Run trainer. So my job is literally to go to different places in the world and run and take pictures and share that journey with you to, I guess, spice up your everyday run. Um, and what's next for me? I just want to keep building with my team, keep building with my community. I want to write another book, which is completely unrelated to running, and I've actually started writing that book. It is like magical realism. It's about Caribbean and African culture, like mixed up with a superhero and a bunch of other stuff. Because I'm like, black people, brown people, we need more superheroes. We need more like Jack Reachers. Like we need more characters that we can see ourselves in. So like I wanna do that. So I'm working on that. Like I want so many things. Like I want All You Need Is Rhythm and Grit to be like a TV show, a movie where we like go around and talk to people about running. I want a cartoon, a comic book, a newspaper, more podcasts. Like I just want to continue to share my world and my journey and continue to bring other people on because eventually, if not already, people get bored of listening to my voice or to my why. So let's hear about other people's why.
Well, everybody that's listening, it all starts with putting it out into the universe.
Hmm.
And when someone's not afraid to say what they dream about, what they want, knowing that they may attain all of it, they may attain none of it. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter because what you're doing is you're showing people to put it out there and work towards a goal and start
Hmm.
with movement.
Hmm.
So I'm grateful, Corey. It's awesome to have you on the show. It's been a great conversation. This is the beginning of a good relationship. I look forward to being someone that you can count on in your corner. And when you're on the
Oh,
East Coast, we'll connect up. And
oh,
but
definitely.
but thanks for joining me on this show. And I hope everybody enjoyed today as well.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. It's been a true pleasure, and most definitely, I'll look you up when I'm on the East Coast.